they took Yokai Watch and shot it out back. Yokai Watch was considered the Pokemon ripoff, the one that actually excelled in many aspects. While the series was ginormous in Japan, literally taking over the country by storm in the mid-2010s, it's had a rather interesting history in the West. In the West, the games were always localized incredibly late, with Yokai Watch 3, which many consider the pinnacle of the 3DS games, releasing in 2019 on the 3DS. 2019 and 3DS doesn't really have the best track record now. Alongside this, Nintendo stopped working with Level 5, the developer of the series, as a publisher because they didn't want to split the profits. This decision lost them a lot of marketing. Also, the anime was getting incredibly stale and repetitive when that was what got a lot of people invested in the IP to begin with. It was really a perfect storm for disaster and not just one reason as to why this series fell off so hard. Meanwhile, in Japan, developers Level 5 were pumping out game after game and the entire franchise became so oversaturated, it began to turn people away even over there. By 2019, when we got 3 in the West and 4 for the Switch in Japan, people simply had enough. 4 flopped in Japan, which was kinda crazy considering how massive it was just a few years prior. In Japan, they kept experimenting with how to reinvent Yokai Watch with the Shadow Side animated series, which was much more gritty and mature, but that didn't work. So then they rebooted the anime, but then that didn't work. So then they just made a spin-off where the yokai are in school, but then that also didn't perform well. So then they rebooted the main series again with a little music note. The anime run as a whole really shows you how much was going on in less than a decade and how people got tired of it. The unfortunate part is, these games are still really good. Yokai Watch 2 and 3 are widely considered to be some of the best RPGs on the 3DS, which is an incredible feat. The 3DS is an RPG machine. And take it from me, as someone who's previously been scared to dip my toes outside of Mario RPGs, these games are pure charming and emanate a Nintendo level of quality. Anyways, alongside the failure of Yokai Watch 3 in the West, shortly after followed the closure of the 2 American Level 5 locations, Abbey and International America. Level 5 Abbey focused on localization, translation, marketing, and even textures. International America focused on the more coding end of things. Both studios, while separate, seemingly worked hand in hand with each other. Once both American studios were dead, things were silent in the West for Level 5 fans. In general, even in Japan, things slowed down, with the only notable releases from 2021 to 2023 being Megaton Musashi, which is a pretty niche mecha action RPG. Although around 2023 we got the announcement that Level 5 was making a comeback in the West, announcing a new IP Deca Police, a new Professor Layton game, and a new Fantasy Life entry. Professor Layton and Fantasy Life were both highly praised IP, and the fact that all 3 titles were scheduled for a 2023 worldwide release, we were bound to see the next Yokai Watch project sooner than later. Fantasy Life I came out 2 years later. Professor Layton and the New World of Steam is currently scheduled to release in 2026. Deca Police has shown only less and less, with the most recent update saying, "In development." I'm talking about Deca Police and Level 5's mess of a development history in another video. But the point is, this was a rocky return to the West. Combine that with a lack of communication to overseas fans, with various update live streams or trailers not having captions at release, it's been a mess ever since their return. Anyways, Level 5 would continue to announce more and more projects, but we didn't see Yokai Watch really anywhere. The IP only really existed through the mobile game Puni Puni, which was previously known as Wibble Wobble in the West before it got shut down, which is still seeing various collabs and updates in Japan only, until their major Nintendo Direct-like presentation in late 2024. The final announcement prefaced with next Yokai Watch concept, and what followed was actually a really cool concept underneath something far more disturbing. At first, while not Yokai Watch, this game looked to be oozing with style. The animations, character designs, and music are incredibly lively. You play as 10 Lordland, which the name could use improving, but more importantly, instead of ghosts inspiriting people and causing them to act in certain ways, this game follows a multitude of different types of ghosts. Like, there's a green ghost which inspires inanimate objects, a blue ghost that fuses objects to create new ones, and hold on, did they get the Apple Pen guy for this? Yeah, you know how in Yokai Watch, traditionally you'd see those wacky songs for summoning each type of yokai? This is this game's version of that, I'd assume. They literally have different famous artists for each ghost type here, but more on that in a bit. Lastly, we see a pink ghost type, which can create their own dungeons based on objects. Apparently there's something important in them. Then we're introduced to the main villain, which is an evil corporation that will stop at nothing to make money. We're getting pretty realistic here. So this game I've been describing is called Holy Horror Mansion, a quote-unquote ghostcraft RPG, where a protagonist 10 finds a camera that can allow him to see these ghosts and utilizes them to take down the big bad evil corporation. In my opinion, this is a really cool concept, if we clarify a few things. Firstly, this is in no way replacing Yokai Watch. It's a spiritual successor while the team can take a break from the series by the looks of it. I want to look at another level 5 IP, for example. Deca Police is supposed to be a spiritual successor to Professor Layton. They even directly say that in the trailer that's the quote-unquote evolution of the series, but that doesn't mean it's replacing it. We literally got an announcement of a new Professor Layton in the same direct. Even going back to Snack World, which was heavily inspired by the Yokai Watch Blaster spin-off, wasn't supposed to be a replacement for it. It was taking the concept from the roots and going in a completely different direction. It seems to be a theme for Level 5 in the past decade to take something that made a lot of money and reinvent it, for better or for worse. Okay, now that we've clarified that this isn't replacing Yokai Watch, what other concerns are there before I'm sold on it? The cross-media aspect, we'll get to the AI-generated elephant in the room in a minute. Level 5 loves cross-media, not just making a video game, but alongside an anime, a manga, spin-off, so much more. This was one of the main things that caused Yokai Watch to explode in popularity. The accessibility of the brand in Japan, it was everywhere. Yokai Watch itself didn't force a lot of cross-media inside of the game itself, but Holy Horror Mansion is showing a concerning amount of it in this trailer. This game feels like it's going to quite literally build itself off of other partners. Basing an iconic aspect of your game through other artists feels kinda weird. Imagine when Nate is summoning Jibanyan and he has to hit the whip in Nene to do so. It'd feel awkward and artificial. Obviously, this is just a dance, and I'm sure they're not actually going to make it super obvious, but if they dangle keys at me and are like, hey, these dances were made in collaboration with famous artists, consume our product because you like them, that puts a bad taste in your mouth. After the trailer, Level 5 President Akihiro Hino said that they'd be having a cross-media presentation to announce, quote, related merchandise and media developments. Why are we announcing merch for a game that hasn't even gotten a release window? That's the glaring issue with this trailer. It isn't even a trailer, it's a pitch to other companies to collaborate with them on it. Akihiro Hino even expanded on this years later. Part of the reason this company has been announcing these projects so early is to find business partners for these games. There's technically nothing wrong with this, but it comes off as so artificial of trying to manufacture a big hit instead of it coming organically with a game like Yokai Watch. At least with Yokai Watch, the game actually released and proved itself before coming so big. And yes, the manga did technically come out a few months prior and the anime started production alongside the game, but this just feels like too much. There has to be a balance to this stuff, and before I'm proved wrong, I'm gonna assume that they're jumping the gun on this. Maybe this aspect I care about too much, but I thought it was worth bringing it up before we get to it's all slop. This is where the cracks really start to show. Every background in this trailer is generative AI, which is really unfortunate. I want to support this studio at the end of the day. I want to be a fan of this game, but this puts a sour taste in my mouth. I want to lay something out real quick. I am not a fan of generative AI. There are incredible ways regular AI is and has been used for decades now, but generative AI has more cons than pros. I don't like how it scrapes and steals real people's work from blogs, research, art, and so much more to train itself. I don't like how it's been replacing creatives when generative AI literally can't even create anything unique itself since it's technically built from said creators that it's stealing from. I could go on and on. I am not a fan of generative AI. Anyways, you could say I was disappointed to say the least once I noticed. And that notion was not my own. In fact, the majority of the Western audience Level 5 had is heavily against this shift. Look at popular videos about Level 5 or Yokai Watch nowadays, and I bet money it will involve AI or have it referenced. Unless it's about Inazuma 11, they got out okay for the most part. It's difficult to write about this subject because it's such a mess. These companies will try to find a weird middle ground of, oh, we use generative AI for concepts, but nothing is in the final game, and that pleases some people, but others are still upset because why do you even need to use it in the first place if you're just making your product less original? Of course, we have to look at this realistically, and that Gen AI isn't going anywhere regardless of whatever bubble may pop. In the future, we're only going to see more and more AI shovelware, and what Akihiro Hino speaks of regarding the importance of quote-unquote human touch, and that the generative AI is just a tool, an extension of an artist's skill set, holds some truth. At the end of the day, it's important that Level 5 doesn't see this as a replacement for developers and is still heavily expanding their studios. But on the other hand, it still doesn't justify their usage of it from my perspective. I'm currently unsure if I want to financially support Level 5 anymore, and that's just upsetting as someone who grew up playing their games. Anyways, you could tell that this was a rushed out pitch video to other companies to sell them on the concept. Whether it worked or not is up to interpretation, but as a concept, I still think it's a neat idea, and while not replacing the Yokai Watch series, it could be a great spiritual successor. After the 2024 presentation, things were quiet for the game and Yokai Watch in general. The Spring 2025 cross-media showcase was delayed to Fall 2025, then we got another delay to 2026. It wasn't until Level 5's presentation titled Craftsmanship in Spring of 2026 where we'd see any updates on Holy Horror Mansion and Yokai Watch in the worst way possible. Firstly, Holy Horror Mansion actually got a little snippet of gameplay and it looks pretty dang good. And no, I don't actually think this is AI. I think a lot of people got that impression because of the background art in the teaser, the fact that the game has a lot of blur on faraway objects, and that this is obviously a tech demo. I am not expecting the final game to look like this at all. Remember the first Yokai Watch trailer when it was originally going to come out for the PS3? This whole trailer screams as just another pitch to get companies in on this IP. It's merely a set piece for what the game could be. At least I'm hoping, because 10's animations look rough, man. The game still has no actual release window, and the cross-media presentation has yet to air this year at the time of recording. In terms of Yokai Watch, Hino in his disgusting AI-generated background explains how what was originally conceived as a new direction for the Yokai Watch series was to be reworked into something for the previously mentioned Japanese exclusive mobile game Puni Puni. The trailer we see is painful to watch because of how painfully AI it looks. The key art and character designs in general look fine, but oh my god, look at the screen, this trailer looks awful. Even if this animation doesn't appear in Puni Puni itself when this update rolls out, it sets such a bad precedent. And that was really all we got for Yokai Watch related content there. I mean, hell, even Snack World got more stuff than us. Then a bit later, Level 5 took out a fan port of Yokai Watch 2 for Switch, alongside fan localizations. Like, sure man, it's your legal right or whatever, but at least let people purchase the games if you're gonna take something like this down. It'd be different if Yokai Watch 2 was already playable and accessible in modern hardware, but with the 3DS eShop closed and copies going for an absurd amount of money over here, the only way to reasonably experience the definitive version of Yokai Watch 2 or Yokai Watch 3 in general is piracy. This decision was outright childish in my opinion. Yes, it's unreasonable to expect Level 5 to be able to easily port over 2 to Switch, and even localizing 4 is likely out of the question. But you shouldn't be taking down these fan projects then. The aftermath of that controversy led to a petition signaling Level 5 to make these games more accessible worldwide, and it's grown fairly large. I'll be linking it in the description, and I encourage you all to sign it. If Level 5 can notice these projects in the first place, they'll notice this petition with almost 20,000 signatures. And that's basically the whole mess Yokai Watch has been in through the past few years, and since its disappearance in the West. But what does the future tell? It's hard to tell. Hino recently said in an interview that they have an unannounced project in the works for their 30th anniversary, which is looking pretty likely to be Yokai Watch at this point. Even if Yokai Watch isn't their mysterious anniversary game, they're really running out of IP to do before a new Yokai Watch game at this point. The only viable candidates to my knowledge for an existing IP outside of Yokai Watch would be something related to LBX or Ni no Kuni. And generally, I think it's pretty likely they'll try to listen to us and at least port over Yokai Watch 2, hopefully worldwide. Level 5 is a company that has made some pretty concerning choices over the past few years, but at the end of the day, there's still incredibly talented individuals creating art behind Akihiro Hino and his generative AI obsession. Professor Layton in the New World of Steam looks visually stunning, and I really don't want to lose my love for this company because they turn to something that makes their games more bland and outright ugly. But only time will tell if anything will improve. Let me know your thoughts if you're a fan of these franchises. Do you plan to support Level 5? Would you purchase a new Yokai Watch game if AI was used in production but not in the final game? Let's discuss, but trying to keep it civil. This video might have been a change of pace from Nintendo ones, but it was important to me to talk about. See you later.